And thank you for staying with us here on the set of It's Time. I'm still OS and still here with my two men in the persons of Dr. James Simmons from the Center for Human Development here at FAMU, along with Lieutenant Garry Jones from the Federal Correctional Institution. And we were about making change for the better as it relates to being more than a survivor, but someone who's thriving in this 21st century. And as we get into the holiday season, before we went to break, we were talking about again how, in fact, sometimes we as individuals who are about change, because change happens and change occurs when we least expect it, etc., how we adapt to that change, again, has a lot to do with how perhaps we battle with things like depression in our lives. And Lieutenant Jones, I just wanted to ask you specifically as relates to getting inside the mind of a person who's been depressed, as you have been willing to share with us before here on the set of It's Time. You know, what was going on in your mind when, in fact, you realized that you were depressed to the point where you really needed some help?
Well, I'd like to share a letter with you that someone wrote to the family. And I can't read all of it because the time is running. But and the letter goes like this. It took me a couple of days to frame this letter in my head on how I was going to explain my depression. This is the worst I ever felt. I don't think I can no longer deal with this mind disease. I have been sick for at least 30 years, even during the Carver Court days. I used to go to a hidden area and cry, but I didn't know what I was crying about. I even took naps in order to keep from crying. I wish I had spoken up earlier when I was a child, but of course I didn't know what depression was. This disease is driving me crazy. I can no longer put on the front. Growing up, I played basketball, ran track, and played football. I did everything I could possibly do to keep from losing my mind. Growing up, one of my aunts used to say, "Stop smiling all the time and stop showing your teeth." I used to laugh to keep from crying. One day, when I was in school, in high school, I went to the doctor and he suggested I go see a shrink. And I stated to him I didn't want to go see a shrink. That's when I found out about depression. But I never shared it with anyone. When I used to go to North Carolina and visit, I wasn't happy. That's why I drank so much alcohol to hide it from my family. Even growing up, receiving all the awards on the job, I wasn't happy. Even when I first had my house built in North Carolina, I wasn't happy. Being around friends, I wasn't happy. I went to the Super Bowl twice, I wasn't happy. I went up north, Washington, D.C., New York, all kinds of places, I wasn't happy. And that's the mind of a depressed person, you know. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes you disassociate yourself with people. But if you don't go out and get help, if you know you're feeling the way I feel, and you don't go out and get help, then you're going to fall into a real deep depression. And you might can't come out of it. But for those of the people that's listening, please go get help. There's a lot of our young people committing suicide, and we can't afford for that to happen. We need to extend our help and help everybody in the community.
And certainly we hope that we're providing some source of help and hope here on the set of It's Time, just when you're being willing to share the poignancy as part of that letter, Lieutenant Jones. I'm prompted to ask you, Dr. Simmons, about the notion of depression being something that is genetically predisposed in terms of, is it something you can inherit and, you know, hereditary factors? Does that come into play with some levels of depression?
According to statistics, a person who has become, who is a part of a family, who has been, if any member of this family has been depressed, chances are of that person being depressed is increased, you know. So it has its genetic link that people who come from families that have depressed members, chances are you will be depressed sometime before your lifetime is up, you know.
I see. Yeah. And so to deal with that, Lieutenant Jones, is that a part of, you think, why you have been diagnosed with that?
Yes, I read in statistics where it stated up to 50% up 50% of the individuals that suffer from depression, either one or two or more of their parents had some type of episode of depression. And before this show a couple weeks ago, I asked my mother, Virgie, she stays in Maryland, could I share this story? And she said yes. My mother suffered from depression, then suffered from depression. And at times, she's still going through her bouts of depression. And I want to put emphasis on this. Talking to family members, also talking to my mother. My mother had my brother at the age of 14. 11 months later, I was born. She had me at the age of 15. It was in a house, growing up in the projects, in a house already with 8 people, 8 children, not including the grandmother and the grandfather. And can you imagine back in the 60s, you got pregnant at 14 now, 11 months later you have another one. And she was going through so much changes, so many changes with me. At the time she was pregnant with me, that I do believe that's why I got depression. And a lot of people that's out there that's pregnant, it's important that you eat right. It's important that you have your mood, you stay in a good positive mood. And it's important that you stay away from alcohol. It's important that you stay away from drugs and anything of that nature, and try to exercise. Because however you are, whatever state of mind that you are when you are pregnant, it's basically be passed on to the unborn child. And I think that's where my depression came from.
And I'm glad we've been able to grasp that and rip it and tear it apart, so to speak, in terms of us moving beyond that. And with the emphasis on improvement, Dr. Simmons, as it relates to change, and again, you've been a counselor for some number of years, you've been a professor dealing with students in various levels, as well as with your colleagues and staff members, et cetera, here at the university. What would you suggest as we get into this holiday season when persons who may not even realize, because for whatever reasons, to be diagnosed as having depression, suggest that maybe you've gone a little cuckoo or taboo, I think is the word that Lieutenant Jones has referred to as before, in terms of you having some mental illness, some mental disease. How do persons come to grasp with that and, in fact, really go about the business of becoming better? Because it is treatable. It is curable. To me, I look at the notion of diabetes in terms of if you've been diagnosed with diabetes and you know that you're insulin dependent, that's the help that has been put here for you. So how can we get persons to have that kind of recognition to seek once, in fact, they know that this may be something that's adversely affecting them?
Well, you treat it like any other disease. I mean, if somebody told you had heart trouble, you go and see a doctor. Somebody tells you that you have hypertension, you go and see a doctor. They tell you that you got bad teeth, you go and see a dentist.
Okay.
So you treat it the same way. You need to go and see somebody about your mental health.
But I don't want anyone to call me crazy.
Yeah, but the point is, if you want to be better, the only way you're going to get better is by doing something about it. You can't, it's not going to go away. That's one thing. If you think just because you don't do anything about it, something going to be done about it, no, it doesn't work. If it's going to be taken care of, you're going to have to get some assistance, get it done.
Very well. If we knew better, we'd do better. Les Brown reminds us. In terms of how to beat holiday depression, again, tis a figure to be jolly. They be like, yeah, whatever. What are some tips for how maybe beat holiday depression, Dr. Simmons?
Luke, you got it.
Well, we can beat it like, if you know that this time of the year comes up and you suffer from what we discussed last time, sad season affective disorder, you need to start preparing yourself. Look towards positive people who you can associate yourself with. Try to have, instead of being alone, where you have a chance to think negative, because like they say, out of mind is the devil's workshop. So, try to gather yourself around family and friends and stop listening to sad music that will, cause depression. I know when I was growing up, of course I liked the song, the Temptation song, White Billy. No, not Temptation, but the their emotions. What do the lonely do for Christmas?
Oh.
And I love that song, but that's a sad song. And you find depressed people listen to things like that. Listen to something upbeat that would cheer you up. Start thinking about the good times that you had in the past and things of that nature. That's the only thing that could cheer you up.
Like you add to that?
Well, I think, first of all, you need to be organized. You know, you don't wait till the last minute to start shopping. You know, it's so important. And that brings on procrastination, you know, so you don't do that. Yeah. Be creative. You know, a lot of times we think we need to buy gifts all the time. Maybe you could do something else, do a good deed instead of buying a gift. Don't overspend, because you can spend so much money until, you know,
And you can in the new year for
it take you a whole year to pay for it. One of the things you can do is you need to be realistic that just because you have a problem, you don't think it's, I don't care how, it's supposed to be a happy season, it's not going to go away. You still got to deal with it. And help others. Yeah, you could go out to nursing homes. A lot of things you could do. You could join. You could read to somebody. You could be a mentor. So many different things you can do. And you need to find ways to unwind. If you're going to try to have money, another way is to save early, start saving, plan. Like now, you start saving now for next Christmas. And that's one of the ways to do it. It's so important for you to think about the simple things that, you know, a lot of times just going for a walk and just doing things that will ease some of the tension. You need to do some of those kind of things. But one of the real important things you can do is really to keep things off of you, is to help others. And when you help others, you really help yourself.
I had a mentor here at Florida A&M University, the late Professor Thelma Thurston Gorham, who would remind me, honey pie, what you send into the lives of others invariably comes back into your own. And at the time, as a student here, I was like, yeah, whatever. And now I've come to realize that I get what I give, and not so much from the standpoint of giving to get, but that's just, I guess, the universal way of looking at life. In terms of us getting near the end of the program, just Lieutenant Jones, in terms of any words of wisdom to encourage perhaps persons in our viewing audience in terms of, you know, they're depressed. Now they know it, they're willing to seek help. What would you advise them to do?
Well, one main thing I want to advise people to do, when you're depressed, try not to make financial decisions. Because once you come out of that depression, and you realize, okay, when you're depressed, you don't care. You know, it's the next day is not promised to you. You don't care whether or not the next day comes. So you have a lot of things, you start getting your possession away and things of that nature, and start making, well, I'm going to go out and buy this car, a brand new car, just try to make me feel better. When you start making financial decisions, when you're depressed, do not make financial decisions, because once you come out of that depression, and you realize what you've done, you're going to fall right back into that depression because you can't afford what you just done. That's the only advice I can give people. Please do not make financial decisions when you're feeling that way.
Make dollars and
relationships. People fall into relationships.
Right.